Hello, I'm Ryan Bull, a Middle East and North Africa analyst at Stratfor, and this podcast is brought to you by Stratfor Worldview, the world's leading geopolitical intelligence platform. Individual, team, and enterprise memberships are available at worldview.stratfor.com/subscribe.
A lot of stuff is very parallel to the military experience. Just mission comes first. I've really applied to my sense of business where, if the floor is dirty and I need to pick up a mop as the co-founder and executive vice president, I'm picking up the mop.
Welcome to the Stratfor podcast. I'm Faisal Pervez. On today's Pen and Sword podcast with Fred Burton, we'll hear a conversation about a memoir from Matt Best. It's called Thank You for My Service. The book spares no one's feelings as Best, who served 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, describes his war experiences in frank, even profane language. The book is compelling and hilarious at the same time. It's been a hit among veterans and civilians alike. And it is part of Matt Best's new mission, to advocate for and serve time with veterans in a new arena, the office. Stratfor's Chief Security Officer, Fred Burton, recently spoke to Best the day he learned Thank You for My Service was a New York Times bestseller.
Hi, I'm Fred Burton, here today with Matt Best, who has written Thank You for My Service. The book was published by Bantam. Matt is a former U.S. Army Ranger who was deployed 5 times to Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's also the co-founder of 3 successful businesses. And he's also a filmmaker, a little bit of an overachiever, Matt, I would say. Thanks so much for joining us here at Stratfor.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I wouldn't say I'm an overachiever. I just get bored easily. So,
Tell us about Thank You for My Service.
Absolutely. I never really set out to write a book, but just based off of my social media presence and kind of my journey over the last 6 years in entrepreneurship and entertainment, I thought it would be kind of an interesting and fun way to write a book to kind of show a more visceral approach to who I am, kind of give people more insight as far as my experiences as a ranger, and then as a contractor, and then really that transition out of the military and how I became to be kind of an entrepreneur and found new purpose in my life. And so there's a lot of struggle in there. There's a lot of hilarity and just kind of a really compelling, fun story that I wanted to tell.
It really was a fun book to read. Talk to me a little bit about these redactions. I know from my last book, it took the agency a long time to clear it. How long did it take to get your book cleared by the government?
Yeah, so it actually went through 3 different government agencies. The DoD, obviously, Department of Defense being the big one, and that took 17 months. So,
oh my goodness, 17 months.
Yeah, it was long. I guess they had some other books. I don't really know the holdup, and I'm not going to criticize whatsoever because ultimately they were very fair with their redactions, I felt. And moreover, the silver lining in all of that is that I learned so much in business over that essentially 2 years that I came back and rewrote the last 4 chapters of my book. And I'm very thankful for it because I think it reads a lot better than just ending when I made a movie.
Yeah, the blackouts I noticed, and I know from just talking to people, everybody thinks there's a lot of real secrets at times that are behind all these redactions, and you and I know that in reality there's usually not.
No, that's what I found the funniest thing. Like I wrote this obviously very operational security friendly because I knew what you can and can't say, and obviously I've done things in my life that I could absolutely never publish anywhere. But yeah, some of the redactions were pretty funny. They're just like random words that meant nothing, and they're like, you got to redact it.
Yeah, I know. It makes no sense at times, but you got to play ball because they hold all the cards.
Indeed. And if anybody's looking to write a book, fiction or nonfiction, I think a lot of people forget that if they're writing a fiction novel, sometimes you actually have to get the Department of Defense to go through and do a review process on it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, Matt, you've been so successful going from the U.S. military, the battlefield, into business. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from that transition?
Yeah, I use a lot of my experience in the military towards being an entrepreneur. And really, I'm not the smartest guy, but kind of what I say is what I lack in intelligence, I make up in work ethic. And I think a lot of stuff is very parallel to the military experience. When you're on an objective, there can't be egos. Everybody there has to align and be mission focused. And whether that means you're the saw gunner or the 203 gunner, maybe that's your job, but then now you got to replace a tire on a vehicle that get hit by an IED. All those learnings from just mission comes first have really applied to my sense of business, where, if the floor is dirty and I need to pick up a mop as the co-founder and executive vice president, I'm picking up the mop. And I really believe that we've built that culture around the businesses that we've started, and it's created such a healthy and proactive ecosystem that really makes our business successful. I think in part of that is we are a little irreverent and we're very transparent. So we don't have to discuss an issue for 20 days. We literally hammer it out between the two individuals and we move on with our day. So it's been very cool.
Yeah, that's very refreshing, and a lot of lessons, a lot of life lessons with that as well. And I know we share a mutual friend in Jack Carr.
Yeah.
We've had
Great
Jack
guy.
on. Oh, he's an awesome guy. We've had him on our podcast a lot. I know he's also a big fan of Black Rifle Coffee. And I got to tell you, you have a wonderful website there at Black Rifle Coffee. And now, when you're thinking of your other businesses, you have, besides Black Rifle Coffee, you have also Lead Slingers Whiskey and Article 15 Clothing.
Absolutely. I mean, really what we tried to do when we started these was, I had a social media following. So for lack of a better term, being an influencer, we had a market share that we could have a set amount of products to kind of offer to that audience for them to help provide a little supplemental income for us to create more videos and buy a better camera. And that's really how my entrepreneurship journey started. Was I just wanted to buy a better camera, So Jared and I started Article 15 Clothing, and it was really just the fun ideas that we had, the satirical sense in the entertainment things we're doing. We just applied that to apparel and designs. And kind of that was the predecessor to Black Rifle Coffee. I learned a bunch. I learned how not to do business. I made massive failures. But that's what I did, was just learn quick from all those and apply those to the journey forward with Lead Slingers and, most importantly, Black Rifle Coffee.
Do you have any other businesses that's on the horizon? You sound like a guy that is always building bigger and better businesses.
Trying to, Black Rifle is a fairly large company at this point. So really my focus is being the ideator towards brand strategy and then sales channels. So how do we get people that love and support the company, them an easier ability to purchase or interact with Black Rifle Coffee, whether that's brick and mortar, franchise program, different sales channels. So that's really my focus right now. We have some really cool, exciting things coming out next year.
What advice would you give, Matt, to individuals transitioning out of the military or the U.S. intelligence community that would love to do what you have done? What would be some of the counsel that you would provide?
Really, it's just first and foremost is set up a plan, have a plan as far as being financially stable. And that at first might not be what you want to do as far as business or art or whatever craft you want to get into. And kind of what I did was, since I was contracting, and yes, I love that job, but I didn't want to do that forever. But what I was doing during that is, instead of going home or taking 2 hours to watch Netflix or play video games, I applied that time and effort into ideating over how I could create the business that I love and be my own boss. And so it requires work, but nothing we haven't done, whether you work for the government or in the military. You just have to work and apply your brain.
Do you think that looking back on the businesses that you started, is there any lessons that you can take away from there and things you would have done differently?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, I'm a big believer of, handshakes are great, handshake deals, but always have contracts. There's so many websites out there that can give you at least legal guidance and or paperwork to ensure that no one gets screwed over, essentially, because I've had a few really bad business deals in my life that have made me very resentful towards people. So just make sure you do everything right out the gate. And if you don't know how, that's the beauty of the internet. You can Google it and find out in 2 seconds.
When you were putting together Thank You for My Service, we have a lot of folks that listen to our podcasts that want to get published, want to write books, or in the process of putting books together. What are some of your tricks or some of the suggestions that you have in putting together a book that you can get sold in New York? As you and I know, that's not easy.
No, it's very challenging. And luckily, I have a decent amount of social media following. So that obviously added a little asterisk next to my name. But I put a lot of time and effort and actually money into my pitch deck for the book. And so essentially what I did is I hired a professional writer and professional editor, and we sat down and came up with our pitch deck. And then when we shopped it, we knew that this was the best way of getting the story across as far as what the book will mean. And we didn't short that process whatsoever. And fortunately, Penguin Random House, aka Bantam, however you want to look at it, picked us up because they said, wow, if this is what the book is going to look like, we want it.
Yeah, and they've done a wonderful job, and I know I'm very pleased with the efforts that Penguin Random House has done for me and just with my past publications. And for those of you listening to this podcast that have not seen the book, it's a beautiful cover design and looks like they put a lot of thought and effort in it. Did you have any input into this, or is this part of the...
I don't want to sell them short, but I came up with the new name for the book, and I designed the cover. but I'm in a weird position. I run the branding and department for Black Rifle Coffee, and that's what I do as a profession. And I have an amazing team that helps support me. So, I had a lot of assets and resources and time in to create the cover.
Matt, I'd like your thoughts on just this. I don't know what do you call this genre or the nature of the business that you're in? Meaning, as I dig down into the Black Rifle Coffee website, I mean, it's beautifully done. It's tremendous layout. It's easy to use. And there's a lot of material on there that doesn't really have anything to do with coffee.
For sure. I think authenticity is king. And what we've done at Black Rifle is really, how do we get the best quality product into the hands of the end user? So we focus heavily on the roasting process and roast to order and all of that. So we have a great product, but sometimes great products don't sell themselves unless they're revolutionary. So there has to be like an authentic messaging a part of that, which creates the brand and the brand influence. And fortunate for us, Evan Hafer, the CEO and my business partner, we were both special operation guys, and we felt that there was such a lack of support for the veteran community because you have all these, ivory tower progressive corporate entities that are saying they want to support veterans. But for me, it's merely just a PR campaign. Whereas what we're trying to do is actually grow and empower and give opportunity to veterans. And it's been very well received because we're not having veterans assimilate into civilian culture. We're actually having civilians assimilate more into a military culture when they become part of Black Rifle Coffee. And again, just the authenticity of the brand, and we're very transparent in our marketing, and we like to storytell. And not everything has to be about coffee. We want to inform, inspire, and educate people on the military culture, and then have them read over a great article in Coffee or Die magazine with a great cup of coffee.
Your website has Coffee or Die magazine, and there's all kinds of stories that are just very thought-provoking. And I would venture to guess that you have a lot of loyal following among customers that are either former military, public safety, law enforcement, first responders.
Yeah, I feel that we do, and we really try to stay true to that core audience because I think they're often forgot about in general media because it's not clickbaity to talk about, a young soldier that got shot in the leg in Afghanistan. No one really wants to hear about the war, but we want to put that information out so we still know there are men and women serving our country and sacrificing life, limb, and eyesight every day still, 2019, so for me, I feel that's very important as American culture to understand that we still have people in war right now.
We have a very loyal list of customers here at Stratfor that our veterans are currently deployed, and I understand completely what you're saying. Now, Thank You for My Service was such a good read. Do you have another book that's on the horizon?
Oh man, not right now. I have a few titles that I've thought up, and I have definitely some content that I could see going into another book. I wouldn't say that that's a high priority for me right now, but it definitely is in the future. In part, some of the things I do want to combat going forward is kind of like the victim mentality in the veteran community. I really want to showcase to veterans and civilians alike that we can be hyper successful after war in the military, and it doesn't define us. It guides us, our military experience. And it's super unfortunate for me to see companies turn down veterans just based off of them being a veteran. For me, that should be, again, an asterisk that says this is an amazing individual with a diverse set of skill sets. let's hire them. And I see so many talented young kids getting out of the military, and it's hard for them to find employment. And I want people to change their outlook on what a veteran is.
Matt, one of the questions I always ask my guests here on the program is, what other books do they read? Like, I presume you're also a big fan of Jack Carr, like we are here at Stratfor, but what other kinds of books do you read?
So interesting enough, I don't read a lot, to be honest with you, very seldomly. I don't read fiction. That's never been a thing for me. But I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. And so, I think the last book I just listened to a little ago was called Traction, which is a marketing strategy book. And I do that on like my Audible or any digital way of listening to it on like 1.5. And I'll do that while I do cardio in my gym or something like that. But I like information, real information.
Very interesting. Well, I really appreciate you being with us today at Stratfor Talks. Thank you for what you've done for our country.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
I wanted to take a minute to thank you, the loyal listeners of this Pen and Sword podcast from Stratfor. I'm so proud of this podcast and pleased to be able to highlight the important work of guests like Matt Best, Sean Parnell, Jack Carr, John Douglas, the original mine hunter, and so many who have worked in government service and have turned their experiences into new careers as writers or consultants or entrepreneurs. I would also like to thank John and Emily for their fine work in putting this together behind the scenes. They do all the hard work. My job is easy. If you have someone you'd like me to interview, please shoot me an email at podcast@stratfor.com. I appreciate that you listen, and I hope you'll remind your friends and followers to join in subscribing to the Stratfor podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's Pen and Sword podcast with Matt Best and Fred Burton. We'll have details about Thank You for My Service and Black Rifle Coffee, as well as Fred Burton's latest Beirut Rules in our show notes. If you're interested in learning how Stratfor can partner with you to keep on top of global geopolitical developments, be sure to visit stratfor.com/enterprise. Please leave a review on the podcast page in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. For more geopolitical intelligence and links to our content, follow us on Twitter @Stratfor. I'm Faisal Pervez. Thanks for listening.